Okie dokie. Hello, everybody that is watching this recording. Hello, Elle, that's here with me live. Just a bit of a disclaimer to anyone who is watching this recording. I'm not going to bore you with the detail. I've already bored Elle with that detail, but I had a bit of a technical glitch where with there's some calendar discrepancies for my colleagues who are in the Northern Territory. They may think that this presentation is starting 30 minutes later, so we may have some people joining us late in this presentation, but I wanted to get started anyway and just kick off with the presentation and the learning that we're going to do today in a minute. Oh, there you go. Should be able to see my slides there, Elle. And if at any time you can't, let me know. I'll just get up my notes as well so I can see. And Elle, please, if you've got any questions, please ask them because anybody who's watching the recording may well have some questions as well. For those that are watching the recording, just a little bit of housekeeping to let you know that you can book in your personal sessions with me to start doing those diagnostic tools. And for some people, it's stuff they already know. For some people, it's affirming that, and for some it's wow, I didn't know that about myself. So it's a useful activity. Elle, you've already done a little bit with me already.
Done the
Anything?
first one. It was great.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of work on my self-development over the last couple of years. What it really confirmed though was that what I'd worked out agreed, I guess. So I was on the right track. So I know if I continue on that path,
Yeah.
everything will be in sync.
Yeah, and I think what you said, I think to me was it was like putting it down on paper and having something very tangible and clear. It's the stuff you kind of knew, but it was more in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, and what I'm going to also do at the end of this training as well, again, for anyone watching the recording, I want to do a poll to see whether people prefer weekend, evening, or during the week training, because this is the last Saturday one. We're going to transition to daytime, and that'll be interesting to see the show up rate live for that as well. We've also, in a couple of weeks, when we've got our next workshop, I had to change the date again because of some technical challenges. But it is the next workshop, which is about dealing with difficult behaviour. There is that evening, we're going to have our facilitated learning, which I really hope people can get on and be live for, because that is roundtable discussion, knowledge sharing, masterminding, coaching, and the application of the knowledge.
So
All right.
that's Thursday, the 30th of January.
Thank you. I'll trust you on that one. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Looking at my diary.
Good on you. But it's definitely a Thursday. I dropped it in Tuesday by accident because I got my T's confused, but it's supposed to be a Thursday. And that was just me trying to space it out a little bit for people so that they can apply the learning. So the key things that we're going to look at today in terms of negotiation, and the other word that I will say that we can use for this is influence. This is about influencing people. And if you want to get really sneaky, it's about being manipulative. That's got nasty connotations to it. But it's about being able to influence the outcomes and doing everything that you can to get the best outcomes. And what does that environment look like? Let's be realistic about it. And I'm also going to share some tips and tricks that will help. And as an accredited workplace mediator, what I find is that I'm quite often in the post-mediation sessions when I'm coaching people to better manage conflict. I'm giving them some of these skills because they're negotiating through that conflict as well. So we're going to look at ways that we can negotiate with those around us, those that we have greater influence over or not so much. What does a winning situation look like? because everybody goes for a win-win, yay, but that's not always the case. The key is about listening and questioning and some different techniques around that. And I'm going to show you some tricks. And then if we've got some time at the end, looking at, and it may just be you and me, Elle, or maybe some others that are joining us by then, but looking at managing behavior, and so how we manage our own behavior and how we manage theirs, because it can sometimes, especially when you're negotiating through conflict, you can get easily triggered by things that people say. And so how you can work through that and get to the other side rather than running away from a negotiation. So how you can stay positive when you're being triggered. So I guess the first question I want you to think about is who you negotiate with and what are the challenges. Seeing as it's you and me, Al, I know for me, I have to negotiate with my children, I have to negotiate with clients. What about you, Elle? Who are some of the people you have to negotiate with?
Um, well, I spend a lot of time on my own, so I'm not negotiating anyone there. I guess I'm heavily involved in some volunteer organisations, so negotiating there on what responsibilities we have. My kids are all grown up, so I don't have to negotiate with them. Some negotiation with my husband as to what's going to be happening on any given day. Um, yeah, that's probably the main ones for me.
Well, when you and I talked, you mentioned that you're on some committees and some boards. So I imagine that you'd have to negotiate with those people, particularly if you disagree or you want to do things differently.
Yeah, that's the volunteer
Yeah,
organisations.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
yeah.
I'm not in a leader. I'm not in a direct leadership role in those, but I'm still very active and hold a position that has some merit. So yes, negotiating. Um, but it's important for me in those cases to recognise there are other people who are equally as skilled and knowledgeable, if not more so. So I don't go into any of those negotiations with a view to I have to be right.
Yes, that's a really good point. And then other question is that I have is what is it that you actually want to influence? Like, are we wanting to influence people's behavior? Are we wanting to influence people's opinion? Do we want to influence them to get on side with us? Do we want to influence them to buy something? Do we want to
The results and outcomes.
That's right. Sometimes too, if you think about it in terms of conflict, it could also be influencing their emotions. So it could be to help temper their emotions if they're getting really angry or irritated, um, influence them to create a sense of safety. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that we could actually be influencing, and also to think about sometimes we don't recognize that there are it's not just clients, it's not just family, it's also people like the bank, tradies that are doing work on our property, maybe. So it could be contractors, whether it's in our business or a personal life. It could be the people we're buying things from, trying to get a better deal.
Suppliers.
Yeah, yep. It could be at a restaurant with our meal, trying to negotiate something, or who knows. There's lots of different, we forget how often we're actually negotiating. And often when I talk to people about sales, it's got a bit of a dirty word, but we're always
Mhm.
trying to sell something to somebody, convince them of something or influence them. And then if we go, then Nell, their next question is why? Why do we want to influence people? And it goes along the lines of what we're trying to influence.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I'm in a discussion with someone who may not have had the same experience in the same areas, I'm probably trying to influence them to come around to my way of thinking purely and simply because I've tried and tested and want to save them some time. But not always. Sometimes it's more of a balanced discussion where I just want them to think, consider alternatives, and maybe come to a consensus overall.
Yeah. So you're coming to, consensus, coming to an agreement. Yeah. And so if it's a one-on-one kind of negotiation, because I can hear what you're talking about, I'm thinking too in terms of that board environment. Here we go.
Mhm.
Amber joining us. Sometimes we want people to agree with us. We want people to, hello, Amber, how you going? Oh, you're on mute. Lovely to see you. Hi.
Barbara.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for making it. I know you're really busy, so I really appreciate you jumping online. I'm recording. You probably got a notification that I'm recording. Yeah.
Yes, I just I thought it was 1:30 it was starting.
I know.
That's okay.
Yes, and I'm sorry about that, Amber. So you're very organized coming on early. I don't know. I think I thought I sent you some message. I tried to get a message to all my Northern Territory people. Just this appointment got corrupted by the portal, and for some reason the portal is half an hour out. So
It's on Northern Territory time.
no, because it's supposed to, it tells everybody it starts at 1:30, but sorry, in the calendar it looks like it's 1:30, but it's actually 1, supposed to be 1.
Yeah,
So
well, it needed a bit of a rest.
yeah, that's right. Well, everyone on Territory time comes late anyway, so they're going to be
That's
really
what I
late.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Amber, good on you for being organised and being early. Love you.
Thanks, Barb.
We're just talking about, and it's you, me, and Elle at the moment. We're just talking about, and there's a lot of people, Amber, I was explaining in the beginning, and everyone who's watching the recording will see this again. There's a few people that are on holidays, a few people away, and a lot of people obviously doing stuff on the weekends, which I appreciate. But we're just talking about the type of people that we have to negotiate with, and we're talking about what we're trying to influence. What are we actually trying to influence? Whether it's opinion, whether want to influence their emotions, whether we want to get them to buy something or buy into something, and why we actually need that. And it could be sometimes too, Elle, like what you were saying, it's getting people to join in and participate, but it can also be to get people to step out or step down, or to sit back, or to let go. Or sometimes it can be really big stakes things like winning an argument or a court case, or to sell
One of
something.
the times when my negotiation skills were tested to the limits was when I was selling real estate. And you have to negotiate on both sides. I'm sure there are other people who've got real estate stories, but one that sticks, I've got 2 stories that stick into my mind with regards to negotiation. Both times the sellers were very set on their pricing, and they had the financial resources behind them. They didn't need to lower. So I knew that as the agent, I was going to have to get the buyer up, or the buyer would not get the property. So one was looking out over a beautiful bushland area, and the price was 1.3 million. And the average house in the area was around, sort of the 300,000. This was an exceptional property. And we were standing out there looking at this beautiful bushland, which I knew that the buyer was in love with. And I said, look, isn't that $1 million view? She said, oh, yes, it is. I said, well, there you go. You're only paying 300 for the house, and the rest is just the view. So, yes, you're right. And signed on the dotted line.
Well done.
The other one came from an Asian culture. So bartering and negotiation were very high, and she had to win. And she wanted the seller to come down, and the seller would not budge. And it was a personal friend of the fellow that I worked with, so I knew There was no option, no alternative. So I said to her, look, it's okay. We were only like 5,000 on, and on a $750,000 property, we were $5,000 apart, which, while $5,000 is a considerable sum, it's not in the overall scheme of $750,000. And I just said to this Asian lady, it's okay. If you can't afford it, we'll go and look at something else. I can afford it here. And up she came with the other 5,000. Now, both of them, if I'd gone in heavy handed going, you have to do this, that wouldn't have won. So it was the negotiate. I find when I'm negotiating, I've got to look at it from the other person's point of view. And I have to know when there's give and take and when it's set in stone.
Yeah. And you've raised some great, Elle, some great tips and tactics, which we're going to raise later on. One of the ones that you raised is, and I think I mentioned it later on, which is called the takeaway in a sales process. So that is where you go, not right for you. I'm going to give it to somebody else. Somebody else is going to get it. So if you don't want it, that's okay. I'll give it to this person over here. So that creates that sense of urgency. And the scarcity, which is really, really big in marketing, and it's worked for a very long time, is creating a sense of scarcity. It's a sale. It's only for a short time. There's a great book written by I can't remember his name. I heard him speak in Queensland when I lived in Queensland, and his book is called Two Seats Left, and it's the guy that started Contiki Tours. And back in the 70s, and he's an Australian guy, and I think he was in Europe, and he was backpacking, and he wanted to go from Paris to somewhere else, or in France. It was something like that, and he wanted to buy a combi van. There was a combi van that he could buy that had 10 seats in it, I think. And
Yep. John Anderson is his name.
Did you just Google it?
I did just Google
Yeah.
it.
And so what he did was he worked out how much he had to sell those seats in order to cover the cost of the combi, and that was his plan to get from this place to this place. So he put up a poster on the pinup board that said 10 people are traveling from here to here. There's only 2 seats left. And that worked phenomenally in terms of creating that scarcity. People jumped in quick rather than going, oh, you've got plenty of time. Oh, there's lots of seats. They're like, oh, I'm going to buy in quickly. And he used that methodology from then on, and then bought 2 camper vans. And when he was doing his tours, he had no idea where he's going. He was the tour guide. He had no idea. And he'd sit in the toilet in the restaurant in between all the different stops, looking at the map going, right, where am I going to go next? It was crazy, crazy story, but it was the scarcity. So you picked up on that straight away. All right. So what we're going to look at is what are the different types of negotiations, because everybody thinks win-win is you win, I win, yay, everybody's happy, and that's the fairy tale. That is where it's mutually beneficial. Everyone's happy, everyone's satisfied. There's no competition. It's very cooperative, and everyone feels good. It doesn't always go that way. So the reality is we need to look at what are the different scenarios. What does that feel like? What does it look like? When do we need to have a different style or a different approach? And why? How are we participating in that? So if you haven't got anyone who's watching the recording, if you don't have workbooks, it doesn't matter, but this diagram is in the workbook. Draw this down and start to get a feel for what these are, and write some notes, because when you write notes, it helps hardwire your brain and remember these things, and you'll remember them in the moment. So let's look at what the next type. There's I win, you lose. So if you think about this is me, 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 me. I win, I'm the boss. It's all about me. And so what happens in this scenario is one person is very aggressive. Now, it was kind of like what you were saying. You can't go in there really aggressive and just go, this is the way it is, this is what you're going to use. And one person has power or position to get what they want. I get what I want, and I'm going to make you get what you get. No negotiation, no conversation, no cooperation. It's not often that this scenario exists, but it's the really strong authoritarian. So parents do this, for example. Police officers do this. There's very little, very, very little negotiation or wiggle room on this. So it's not often that you would have those situations. But like you said, Elle, you've got to be aware of what you're doing, and you don't want to fall into that trap. All right, then we've got I lose, you win. So this is the flip side of that going, all right, police officer, okay, hand me the fine. Yes, I was speeding, you're right. But what's really interesting in this situation is one person who is always programmed to miss out. Is there any wiggle room in there? This is where you in this situation have to go, do I have any other options? Can you negotiate with that police officer? I don't know what that might be, but are there situations where you can actually go, have we got another solution? Is there an alternative to this? But you've got to be careful that you don't drop into this all the time because you're too scared to have a healthy conflict with somebody. You're too scared to ask a question or ask for an alternative. This would be a very passive situation, and you're burying your feelings, your thoughts, your opinions. What happens when you get too comfortable adopting a passive position is later, it'll manifest later on. You'll be resentful, you'll be stressed, you'll be irritated, agitated. It'll bring up something later on. Does that resonate with you both? You can see what that means.
Yeah.
Then we have I lose, you lose. If I can't win, then you can't win. Yeah. This is two people butting heads, and neither one is willing to back down. If I can't get what I want, then you're not getting it either. Really, really butting heads. You often see this sometimes in divorce negotiations, right? Where people are going, yep, I'm not going to, if I don't get what I want, then you're not going to get what you want. Hi, Jasmine. Great to see you. I don't know, Jasmine.
Hi.
Did you think this was starting half an hour later, or did you, because some people, there was a bit of confusion, which is a technical issue, about the start time. So we've already started, but you haven't missed much.
Yeah, mine has come through at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, which is what time is it there now?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think of yeah.
Sorry, Jasmine. There was the portal that I use isn't very consistent with its timing, which is why I send out calendar invites, but for some reason it overtook my calendar invite. So there's a bit of discrepancy. So people watching the recording, there's going to be people like Jazz and Amber and others that are coming in late. It's not your fault, it's my fault, and I just started a little bit early. So and
No,
we've only
that's all
just
right.
started.
That's the whole point, to iron out these issues.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Your understanding as I navigate some of these challenges and try and work through them.
Yeah.
I think what I'll do actually is put the times in the title of what it is for Australian Central Standard Time. And so then we can try and navigate through that. That's what I was
Sorry,
trying to say.
Australian Central Time, that's NT time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
Amber. For once, we override Northern Territory. You are actually on Australian Central Standard Time, Darwin.
Yeah.
We have for those that aren't in the territory, we have a fight with the North. That's where all the politicians are, and we think that they forget everybody south. So, so that's why I'm teasing Amber.
Mm.
So yeah,
All good.
so in terms of looking at these scenarios, when we've got a I lose, you lose, two people going, yep, if I can't win, you can't win either. We all lose. Yeah, and that's not a negotiation. That's two people not backing down in their conversation. Then we get I win the end. That means someone has to win. Someone has to win in this situation, and both people are going to fight till the end until one person wins. And it can be a bit of a battle of the wills. It's not common in negotiation because it's not effective. But where do you think you would see that kind of relationship where there's two people competing and you keep going until one is the winner? Can you think what situation that's pretty common?
In the Olympics.
Oh yeah, that's the Olympics. In competition, definitely.
Yeah.
If you've got conversation, people going back and forth, competing with ideas, who's right and wrong, for a particular outcome, and there could be money involved or property.
I was going to say corporate takeover.
Yeah, it could be yes, it could be a corporate takeover. What I'm looking for is court. Often in court, there's an outcome, there's a ruling, and it's one person or the other. Sometimes there's a situation where there can be no ruling. I forget what you call that in a court, but normally you keep going until one person wins. And then we've got both win or there's no deal. So this is a really solid kind of negotiation where we each get something out of it. There is a little bit of give and take, and there's a bit of a compromise. You might have a situation where you agree to disagree. And it has to be fair for both people, or there is no resolution, there's no outcome. So that is typical in what you see in mediation, in those kind of negotiations. So when I was doing my mediation training, they told us about a story where a judge, after the mediation, the judge said, right, is everybody happy now? And each participant looked at their lawyer and said, well, actually, no, I'm not happy. I'm actually not happy. And so they had to go back into deliberation again. And what the judge should have said, can everybody live with the decision that they've made? So sometimes there is a little bit of compromise in this situation. There has to be, I can cross the winning line with that. So there has to be a solution where there's a little bit of benefit. And this probably is healthier, this one here, than this one. Because this one is, yay, you're happy, I'm happy, woohoo. I sound like Oprah. You get a car, everyone gets a car. And do you know what was really interesting? I read a story about that afterwards, because that's kind of the win-win situation. But a lot of people couldn't accept those cars because they were low-income people, and something about a tax, some kind of tax in America. So it was going to cost them a lot. And it was also free homes. When people get free homes, they end up being more expensive than what their other homes were because of the property tax, the power, all of those things. So this one has a lot more emotional freedom in it because you've unpacked everything, you've explored everything, and you've really heard the other person. Anybody have any questions about that or any thoughts? It makes you realize there's more than just one way to go into a negotiation, right?
The I lose, you lose. I don't quite understand that one.
That one. I lose, you lose. That one is two stubborn people. Going, if I can't get what I want, then you don't get anything either. So that's where a negotiation comes to a standstill. There isn't really any negotiation. It's where people go, yep, I'm going for this and that's it. And I'm going to punish you if I don't get what I want. So that's why I was saying you see that quite often in custody battles or divorce or those kind of situations. People will not back down. So it's a very limited kind of negotiation. I'm going to get what I want and that's it. And if I don't get it, then no deal. There's not much flexibility in that kind of negotiation, right? It's very limited. Does that make sense, Amber?
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? For those of you that missed a little bit of the beginning, do you have any questions around, just in quick summary, I win, you lose. That's like, I get what I want and I don't care about you. So that would be a police officer or a parent. Just do what I ask you to do. There's very limited opportunity to negotiate. I lose, you win. It's like, okay, police officer, yes, I was speeding. There's an over dominance of power. So this is you being passive. This is you being aggressive. And there's only a smidgen, small margin for any kind of negotiation. Make sense? Yeah. Alrighty, so what I'm going to go to now, this one is a bit of a quadrant. I love a good quadrant. Amber's done lots of work with me over the years, so she was probably seen me do these kind of quadrants. Quadrants are really useful because they help you practice your mindfulness, helps raise your awareness around where you're putting your time and your energy and your focus, and making you aware that you need to not just do one size fits all in your approach to different situations. So this one's really good if you're a business owner, if you have to influence people around you where you're kind of the boss. It could be good for clients as well. Amber, I don't know if have I ever shown you this one? It's about looking at people's skill levels and their motivations. Have you ever seen this one with me before, Amber?
Not skill and motivation one, no.
Okay, so this is a great one if you have to motivate others, where you're kind of in that leadership position. And because we're focused on leadership, that's why I've got this one in here. So we need to consider, the first thing you need to consider is where's their skill at? And if you're a parent, you can think about this, but if you're a mentor or if you're involving others in anything that you're doing, there's lots of different leadership roles. You've got to consider what are their competencies, whether it's technical or cultural or behavioural. Have they got exposure or experience to this thing that we're talking about? And that's the skill. So we consider that, whether it's high or low. Then we have to look at their motivation. Have they got lots of mojo or not? What's their willingness like? Like how committed are they to doing the thing and to doing what's needed? Is it high or low? So when you put those things in combination in this quadrant, it's really interesting, and you have to think about, well, what approach do I need to take? So what I want you to think about, we're going to start with this square, and there's some words that we sit. Oops, got my piece of paper. There's some words that sit within each of these quadrants, and I want you to think about what the word might be. This one starts with an E. If we're up here where someone's got the skill is high up here, but the willingness is low. So they've got lots of skill, but lots of close. They've got no mojo. So engage is pretty close. This one is excite. So if you want to draw this quadrant, if you haven't got the workbook that I've given you, you can just draw a quadrant, write it down and draw these little lines here. Yeah.
Can I just confirm the words that we're looking for is how we would negotiate or lead somebody who has that characteristic?
That's
correct,
right? Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
How we would negotiate with this person to do what we want them to do. So typically in a leadership role, this would be about the workplace and doing work, but it could be It could be your volunteers, Elle, or it could be even in a sales situation where somebody's got all the knowledge around the product. They know how to drive the car. They're just not that excited. You know, they're not excited about it. So you've got to, their motivation to buy is low. So whatever scenario you're looking at where you're in that probably that higher position, what can you do with the person that you're engaging with? So Amber said a great word as well, engage. It's about lifting this, because this is already high, but we've got to push this. So we've got, just think mojo. We've got to motivate them. And this is where you connect in with them. We're going to talk about questioning techniques later on. What floats their boat about this thing? Asking them those questions about where can you find that flame that you can ignite? Where can you motivate them around this thing? And quite often this is about creating a picture, creating a vision for the future, putting them into that future and going, can you see yourself doing this, driving this car, doing this work, this particular outcome? Because they've lost their passion for it. They've definitely got capability and understanding. They've just lost their passion. So you've really got to tie in the benefits for them. So if you want to write that down, it's like, what's in it for me? Why should I care? What's in it for me to get something out to actually lift my mojo? All right. When we've got somebody that, I want you to think about this in terms of a team that you might be working with. Could be a committee, Elle. So they've got lots of skill and they've got lots of mojo. What's a D word that we would have up?
Has to be delegate, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Delegate. Amber, I think you said delegate as well. Yeah.
I said determined.
Yeah. So these are doing words that we want Amber. Amber's has a tutoring business, so I can use their adjectives maybe, Amber, I think they are.
Yes, adjectives.
I think I'm just thinking these are all adjectives.
Oh, no, these are verbs, these ones.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, because exciting and delegating are adjectives. Is that right?
No, adjectives are describing words.
Oh, okay.
And doing words, which are these ones, they're verbs.
They're verbs. Yes, they are.
So
sorry.
excitedly would be the adjective.
Thank you. Isn't she amazing? I've forgotten all of those. Glad I'm not teaching you writing or English. Okay, so yes, the D word is delegate. This makes sense, right? This person is full of enthusiasm and has all the skills. So let them go. Let them take over that thing and engage with that work, or that project, or that sub-project if you're in a committee, whatever it is. Hand it over to them. If you think about this in a selling situation, if you over-explain, oversell, rather than just letting them go, you could do yourself out of a deal. So the key here, what's really important with these people is don't overdo it. Don't micromanage them. Don't over-explain things. Don't give them some independence to go. Off they go. If you are a leader who is instructing team, if this is around performance and getting people to perform, you want to keep challenging them, keep praising them. If I was a salesperson, I'd say, hey, why stop there? Why don't you go for the full engine, You've got this. You don't need a little two-door. Go for the four-wheel drive four-door. You're amazing. Whatever it is. The key with this one is, in particular, if you look at it at work or in a committee, it's about objectives, not methods. It's about, where we need to go. You know what you want. You know where we're going. You go do it. So get to the goal. Don't tell them the how. It's just not getting bogged down in the detail. Okay. Oh, I should have asked you, but I forgot. Sorry. This one, I skipped my slide. Revealed it too soon. When I'm doing this training with people and I'm talking to managers or leaders, and we're talking specifically about performance and negotiating with your staff, and I say to people, what do you do when someone's got no skill and no mojo? And inevitably, people always say, get rid of them, give up on them. But these people here really need some TLC. We've got to feel a little bit of sympathy for these people because they're really struggling. They've probably lost their mojo because they don't get it. They don't understand. They don't see the skills. So what you want to remember, if you want to write this down for this, build the will and then you'll build the skill. What's really interesting about this is people will learn something if they feel motivated, but if they're not motivated, they won't learn. So you've got to make them feel in love again with whatever it is that you're trying to persuade them with. Whether it's to do some work, to get on board with something, they've got to feel the love first, and then they'll increase their knowledge, their competencies, their learning around whatever you're trying to persuade them with. So you've got to get them in love first. And a lot of that, again, is you can see with low willingness, it's about the mojo, the big picture. These ones probably you might need to say small wins, little steps. Let's do this and you'll see. Have a taste, have an experience. Just look at this little thing. And that's a great way to ease them into it. So they need a lot more. If you're a business owner, a manager, a leader, you've got to give them a lot more of your time and give them a lot of feedback about what's working. That's great. Well done. If you just tweak that a little bit, it'll be even better. That kind of feedback. So that's why they need a lot of direction. You've just got to hold their hand and get them moving along and take them through the fears that they have. Very, very clear instructions, very clear rules, very clear deadlines. Has to be very, very clear, or they're going to go slip back again. Okay, lastly, I won't give it away this time. What's this one? It's a G word. They've got lots of mojo, really lots of mojo, but not a lot of skill. Think of them as go, 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 go. Yeah, let me at it. Yeah, woo, woohoo. Yeah, I want to do it.
Go-getter.
Yeah, they're a go-getter. So what do we need to do for them, Amber? What's a G word?
We need to guide them.
Oh, well done, y'all. Yeah, we got to
Good job.
guide them. So if you think about the strategy for this one is, imagine a kid that wants to learn how to ride a bike and they're like, let me at it, but they don't yet have the skills. So we need to be careful that we don't crush them and build fear and anxiety and they get down here. We need to be able to put some guides up for them, which are like training wheels on a push bike, so that they have the key here is safe mistake. This one's all about safe mistakes. Have a go. Let's see how you go. If you make a mistake, it's okay. So you're giving them a little bit of autonomy, but it's safe. And so like that kid with the push bike, you're there, but then off you go, have a go. And if you fall, it's okay. The wheels will catch you. But you gradually lift those training wheels up, making them higher and higher. So the room for mistake is getting a little bit bigger, but they're feeling more confident. You're building their confidence. So I want you to think of it like that. That's where the guides come in. So training is important, explaining things, relaxing the controls as you go, because eventually they're going to go up here. So you don't want to keep those telling them what to do. You've got to give them more and more autonomy as you go. So you can see, if you're an educator, a supporter, whatever your role is, if you try and do the one size fits all, not taking into consideration where somebody might be sitting, you can run into trouble. So if you can think about, well, how willing are they, or what's their skill level in this, you can be adaptive. Does anyone have any questions about this before I move on? Makes sense? Okay. All right, I'm just going to move into next slide, looking at what makes a good deal versus a bad deal. What are some things that we can think about in terms of going into some negotiations? Whenever you're going into a negotiation, it's useful to be able to think about things beforehand. What are your options? So certainly in mediations, I will say to people, what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? What's option one? What's option two? What can you live with, but can you not live with? Where can you compromise, but what can't you compromise? So the key to that is to go, what is the alternative? If I can't get that, can I get that? I'm trying to think if there is some, I'm thinking about your house selling situation. I know, for example, locally there was a family selling, some colleagues of mine who were selling their house. They're leaving town, and they tried to sell the furniture and all the plants, some of the really well-established hanging plants and pots, beautiful, beautiful garden and veranda. So they tried to sell the whole thing, and people were compromising on the price, and said, okay, well, you won't get the furniture, still compromising. They said, okay, well, we'll sell the plants. We'll just sell everything. So that was, I guess, some of the alternatives that they had. But in a mediation, you might go, well, I can't do this, but I can do that. If you were in a custody situation with the sharing of a custody of a child, you might say, okay, well, I can't do every weekend, but I can do every second weekend. That's an alternative. And this is the key to this, is what happens if any bit fails. And also what I say to people in a mediation is, what happens if you don't get what you want? What happens if it fails? What happens if you don't agree? So to give you an example, I did a mediation where there was a team of people. There was 4 staff members and the manager. And these 4 staff said, either he goes or we go. And I said, well, so an option is that you all go. You'll all ask to leave. Are you all happy with that? And then they went, oh, actually, no. So if that's your only criteria, then that is a possibility. That is an alternative. What happens if that happens? So what is our reservation price? What is our reservation offer? That is always going, what's the base level? I'll go this far, but not that far. I'll do that, but I won't do that. I'm always going to be asking that in a mediation. This is about boundary lines. Where is the lowest that you'll go, just so you know what your shut-off point is? And then what's your highest point? And if you're selling something, you always want to go for that. You always want to have your highest ask, right? And this is, your most optimistic assessment. And the best way to think about it is a deck of cards sometimes when you're negotiating. Who holds the highest card? What is the highest card? What trumps this card? So a queen is higher than a jack, for example. So thinking about where things rank, what is higher, what is lower, that can be really, really useful.
Sometimes,
Yes, Elle.
Barb, there's a rock, paper, scissors situation where
That's a
even
good analogy.
your biggest aspiration might still be trumped by something else as that. But it trumps this, but that trumps that. So that rock, paper, scissors
Yes. Yes.
sometimes happen too. They're tricky.
Yes. And it's really good, I think, to really think about these before you go into a conversation, into those negotiation situations, whatever it is, whether you're going to look at a house, Elle, whether you're going into a mediation, whether you're going to buy something, whether you're going to sell something, having that conversation either in your own head or with somebody else around what trumps what, and sometimes it can be really complex. Like, we can let go of that, but we can't let go of all of it. Could be that kind of thing, so yeah, we can compromise on one, but not everything, or not those two things together, or yeah, whatever it is. So if you think about a custody thing with the children, yeah, we can do holidays, but not public holidays and school holidays. Or yeah, we'll do school holidays, but not Christmas and Easter, or not birthdays and whatever those things are. And they're good examples for me to use because they're really emotive, so you kind of get it. And I like this quote too, in thinking about those kind of negotiations. You don't want people to feel, you want that that emotional, mutually benefit situation. You want people to come away feeling good. So in terms of when we're looking at negotiation, the things that are really important are assertiveness. Now, this is not about being overly confident, being aggressive or forthright. It's just about professionally or with emotional intelligence communicating what you want and what you need. So this is what's important to me. This is where these are the things I need in a house. Like, I can compromise on that, but I can't compromise that. Or in a workplace. In order for me to do my job, these are the things that I need. And this is what I would like to have happen. It's finding the language around that for you to be able to communicate what's most important to you and what you need to feel fulfilled. Now, when you're in a negotiation, the best thing you can do is listen for that or ask questions to establish what that is in the other person, because that information for you is incredibly useful. If I know what's most important to you, then I can work with that and see what solution I can come up with that also works for me. So that's where the active listening comes into play. Listening to the wants and needs of the other person, offering a solution to their needs that also benefits you. So if I'm selling something, this is where it's really good to be able to go, I think you having a view is the really, really important thing here. So I can't sell you this $1 million property with $1 million view, let's say, but I can give you this one that overlooks a park, because that's what's most important to you, is the view. You're being able to sit on your balcony with a cup of tea and whatever. So I can't give you that, but how about I give you that? It's really listening to what it is that someone's communicating about what they want or need, and you thinking about, well, what can I do in that scope? But by the same token, you need to communicate that. Has anyone heard of Alan Peace? Anyone know? Elle, you've heard of Alan Peace? Amber, Jasmine, have you heard of Alan Peace? Do you know who that is? No?
It may come to me, but at the moment, no.
No, that's okay. He is a very famous Australian who I used to watch him as a kid. When I was a kid, coming home sick from school and watching telly, we only had 2 TV stations, a regional commercial station and the ABC. And the midday show, which later became Ray Martin, I think, and Kerry Ann Kennelly, there was a midday show. It was that program. It used to be, back when I was a kid, the Mike Walsh show. Mike Walsh was the first person. Elle, you remember that? And Alan Peace, this is why Elle knows who he is. Alan Peace was often a guest on there. Alan Peace is an international celebrity because he's famous for being able to interpret people's body language. He could look at photos of politicians or celebrities and know exactly what's going on in the relationship, whether somebody was uncomfortable or trying to dominate or being paranoid. But Alan Peace is also he coaches people on how to sell, how to negotiate, how to influence people, not just with body language, but also verbal language and planting cues and things like that. Everyone's probably heard of neuro-linguistic programming now. He was one of the first people to actually do that kind of stuff. And one of the biggest lessons I learned from him is that he says questions in a negotiation are the most powerful thing. And he wrote a book saying questions are the answers. Like, you will get results if you use the right questions. There's a technique called motivational interviewing, and I'd encourage you to Google that, look into that. There's lots of books and videos and techniques. Motivational interviewing is often used by health practitioners to get people to change their behaviors for their health. It is used by detectives in trying to get a confession out of criminals. It's a way of asking a series of questions to kind of get people to a realization or to a commitment or to an outcome. So it's about asking.
And you said this book is written by Alan Peace?
Yeah, he's written lots of books, Amber, but he wrote one book called Questions Are the Answers. I'm going to give you a formula that he uses, and I saw him speak. I first saw him live. I was so excited when I finally got to see him live. He came to the Northern Territory too, not that long ago. But years ago, I was doing Amway, and we go to the conferences and they teach us how to sell Amway. And he gave this great technique, which was really, really effective for people to sell Amway. And, you know, Amway's got a bit of a bad reputation these days. So this was a method that helped overcome some of those challenges. So if you want to write this down, it is also in the workbook that I shared, but you can just write this down. These were the six questions. The first one is, what's your number one priority? Now, remember what I was talking about with that quadrant as well. It's around what's really important to you. What is the most important thing to you right now? And then the second question, this is an interesting one. Why that one? Why? Why is that so important to you? Why did you pick that thing? So that's question number 2. So it's number 2 is, why did you pick that one? The third question is an extension of that. Why is that important to you? So the second one can be a bit more of a, you know, technical, but the third one is really emotive. Why is that important to you? Why is that so important? There is 5 questions. It's just the way I've got it laid out in my notes. The next question is, what's the consequence of not having that thing? Or what's the consequence of not having that opportunity? So, Elle, that goes along the lines of what we were talking about before in the takeaway. I'm going to paint this beautiful picture, this important thing. Why is that important to you? Why did you pick that? All right, now I'm going to take it away. What does it look like to not have that thing? What's the consequence of not having that? And then the last question is, well, why does that bug you? Why does that worry you? Why does that bother you? Why does that hurt you? Why does that pain you? And so now you've got a lot of information. You know, what's the most important thing to me, why I'm picking that thing, and why I feel that way, what's going to look like if it's not there, and why that really gets to me. So when you're negotiating with someone, you can say, well, I can solve that for you. I can make sure you have that thing that's so important to you and it's not going to go away. Makes sense. Did everyone get those questions down? Anyone need me to repeat them?
They're in the booklet.
They are in the booklet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So if anytime you go into a negotiation, well, you know, I said for you, it's important to be prepared. I actually say to people, write questions down. I always do this in a mediation. I always do it in any kind of negotiation. I have questions written down in front of me, and I actually say to people, oh, I've got some notes here. Here's a question I haven't asked you yet. And I refer to those. You're not genius legends who can memorize everything in your head and remember it in a spot. Gosh, you know, that's a big ask. So it's reasonable to have some notes down in front of you of some questions you want to ask. Just go, oh, here's one I haven't asked. These are, I think, in the workbook as well. So some other questions. Are you open to? Would you consider? How do you feel about this? This is my favorite one in a conflict. What's going to make it right? Really, really powerful. My kids, when they used to fight, I was an only child, so trying to parent brothers that would fight and squabble was a really new skill set for me. And he started it. And I'd say, and you can stop it. What are you going to do to stop it? To end this conflict? This is a great one too in conflicts because you're paraphrasing. It demonstrates you've heard things to people. It's really, really powerful in negotiation. So what you're telling me is that having the wind in your hair in a convertible car is the number one thing for you. And if you don't have that, you don't have freedom. It's L. So what you're saying to me is that having a view of the ocean is the utmost important thing for you in a property. Whatever it is that people, if you paraphrase it, they're going to go, yes, you hear me. We are in a relationship because you have that, we understand that conversation. But all of these questions are so powerful, so powerful for you to be able to, and they will, Alan Pease says, whoever is asking the questions is the person that is in control of the situation. All righty. Any questions? Any thoughts, comments around that? The other thing I will say to you is that if you're not getting what you want out of any situation, think about a different question, because we often default to the ones that we feel comfortable with and feel familiar. So we sometimes have to think about, do I want to understand people's thoughts and opinions and emotions? Do I want to get buy-in and commitment? Do I want to get data and information? Like, what is it that you're actually wanting? And maybe you're asking the wrong question. Alrighty, I'm going to teach you some tricks. Some of these are sales techniques that I've learned, mediation techniques. These are useful things that you can utilize, some tricks up your sleeve that you can use. And I'll go through these and then we might have a little 5-10 minute break, see how you're going. Does everyone know the story of the boiling frog? It sounds pretty mean. Jasmine's nodding her head. For those of you that don't know, or for those of you in the recording, what the boiling frog story is, or the analogy of the story, is that if you drop a frog into boiling hot water, it'll immediately jump out because it knows its life is in danger. But if you put a frog into boiling water, if you put a frog into tepid water or cool water and very, very, very slowly turn the temperature up, it won't feel it. It won't recognize it. And you can slowly lift the temperature until it gets to boiling point, and the frog will die because it hasn't felt the temperature increase. So the analogy, the theory behind that is that you have to paint that picture for the person. You have to say to them, if you don't act now, you bring them in, you get them to jump now rather than waiting for the pot to boil. So you need to say to somebody, if we don't do this now, this is what's going to happen. If we don't fix this now, this is going to happen. So if I give it to you in terms of a sales analogy, let's say I'm a door-to-door salesperson selling of really high-end vacuum cleaners, does a vacuum cleaners, and I knock on your door and you say to me, no, I don't want a vacuum cleaner. This one's old, but it works perfectly fine. It kind of does the job okay. And so then I will say to you, would you know that if you continue to, the research shows that if you continue to use this vacuum cleaner, that type of vacuum cleaner, the life expectancy of your carpet is diminished by 70%. It won't last as long. You're going to have to replace your carpet much sooner than if you used this type of vacuum cleaner that looks after carpet. Did you also know that that type of vacuum cleaner stimulates the bugs in the environment that cause asthma and also release any asbestos that is present in old carpets. So if you're not replacing your carpet, but you want to keep it for a bit longer, you're actually putting your health at risk by using that vacuum cleaner. So if you keep using that vacuum cleaner, you're going to get health conditions much sooner rather than later, and you're going to have to replace your carpet much sooner rather than later. So you're going to actually end up spending a lot more money much sooner. Whereas if you bought this vacuum cleaner now, you're going to save yourself a lot of hassles. You get the picture? So you're kind of creating the pain now in order so that people go, oh yeah, I need to do this now, not later. They're investing in something now rather than waiting till later. It's called the boiling frog technique. This is a really good one when people are in a fixed mindset, someone who will not budge. So, Elle, this would be a really good one for those community conversations where people go, no, not going to compromise. No, I don't want to do it. This is almost like a question is the I wonder bit. So you actually go, I like what you're saying about this, and I like what you're saying about this. I wonder what would happen if we did this. So you start off by saying two things that you like about their ideas and what they have to say. And so that creates an alignment with them. I'm on board with you. I'm with you on that. And then you throw a little twist in it because they're coming along with you on the journey, and then you go, oh, let's just take a little turn, and they will follow you with it. That's kind of what you're doing in their brain. So to give you an example, this is a pretty dry one. I like your idea about including last year's sales report, and I like how you've compared our performance to local market standards. I wonder whether we could also include market forecast to help us to get even more buy-in. I've got to come up with a better scenario than that. It's so boring. So this just helps shift someone who's very fixated on something. That's a little one. So all you have to remember, 2 likes and 1 I wonder. That's an easy one to remember.
Barb, just in your workbook,
Yeah.
you've got the boiling frog trick, then you've got the feel felt found twice instead of I like, I wonder.
Thank you. I do too. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Has everyone heard of the feel felt found trick? Anyone heard of that one?
No.
Amber, you haven't heard of it? Elle, have you heard of it? You have. Yeah. Were you taught this when you were doing real estate?
No, surprisingly, I was, but in a different way. No, I did a sales and marketing. When I had my digital marketing agency, I did a lot of sales work. So I did some training on that feel felt found.
I love feel felt found because it's easy to remember, It's a great alliteration. This one's really good for objections or complaints. I used to use it a lot when people were, when I was working with an entrepreneur and I'd have to handle customer complaints about things. This one was a really good one to use when people were agitated. And there's a lot of research again around how this works. It is, and you have to use it carefully though, I will say that. So the idea is to say, it might be someone goes, oh, that's really expensive. Gee, that's a lot of money for a vacuum cleaner. And you can say, look, I know exactly how you feel. Other customers have felt the same way. What they've found is that it's such a powerful vacuum cleaner, they don't have to replace the parts as often, and it's not expensive. You can use it's the art of storytelling, which is what Alan Peace talks about, but you can use it about yourself or somebody else. Al, have you got some good examples for that?
I actually used it just last night. I was in a very, after our chat, I was in a very provocative, I'm not quite sure, but I was ready to take on the world of social media. And there's a self-publishing group I'm part of. So I put in there, because there's a lot of anti-AI in this particular group. So I put in that I wanted to, give a balanced view of AI and, have a balanced discussion about it. And I responded to each and every person who responded. It had something like 160 comments in a matter of 2 hours. And on a couple of them, I used who went, no, a real author won't use AI. And I used, I know how you feel. I felt like that before I used it. But what I found was it enhanced my ability rather than diminished it. So yeah, I was using that same feel, felt, found, not as a sales technique, but as a negotiation tool.
I used to, that's a great example, Elle. I'll give you another example is when I first learnt this technique, I was being mentored by a really amazing salesperson. Long story short, I was selling for this entrepreneur, it was a product that was kind of a hybrid between a retirement village and a nursing home. So people were able to live in their own homes, but get a high level of nursing care, the same level they'd get in a nursing home, but actually in a home environment. And they were very safe. And there was nursing staff on site 24/7, et cetera, et cetera. But people, obviously it was very new, so people had hesitation about that. So for example, someone might say, I don't want to leave my own home. I don't want to move into a nursing home. And say, look, I know exactly how you feel. Your home is your sanctuary. You have your independence. So I'm reaffirming what they're feeling. We've had people who come here and have felt exactly the same way. They've felt just like you. You're not alone in those feelings. And you probably felt like nursing homes are God's waiting room, right? Well, what people have found when they've come here is that they've felt safer. They've got lots more independence. They've got a lot more control. They're living in their own home with their pets, and they don't have to go in a nursing home. They can cook meals if they want, or they can have it delivered. But yeah, they've got a lot of independence. So yeah, I just use that model to go, I'm with you on that. Yeah, we've had people feel the same way. This is what they were feeling. You feel that way? Yeah. And they've felt like this is going to happen. So yeah, same, Elle. I know exactly how you feel. I'm an author. I don't want a computer doing writing for me. I used to feel like that. This is what I felt. I felt like computers were going to take over. What I found is it created a draft that I could then apply my own beautiful, whatever it is that you're doing with the AI. Yeah. So Amber, you could do the same with people, you students that that are resistant to doing something,
We don't say, because I tell the learners that they're in charge, we don't get a lot of resistance from the learners. It's mostly the parents and the cost that's involved. Because I have one tutor with every learner, it ends up being that, I've got 12 kids here, therefore I've got 12 staff on as well.
Yeah.
And therefore, with the wages and the super and all the rest of it, I've had to raise the price, and cost of living, obviously. I've had to raise the price from $85 to $95. But if people pay in advance for a whole contract of 10 weeks, then they can get a $10 discount off every session if
So-
they pay in advance.
And so,
But-
yeah, sorry, Amber, keep going.
What I was just writing down while you were saying that is that, I was thinking people say that's expensive. And I would say others have felt the same way, but franchises don't pick up a learner where they are and move them on. And the learner here is in charge of their learning, not waiting for someone to come around and help them, or they're not being given, they're being asked, oh, you're in grade 5. Well, here's some grade 5 work. Go down, sit down and put your hand up if you need help. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I was writing down there, because
Yeah.
I often get people, and as long as we can get them in the door,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
get them on the phone, we can explain those sort of things to them. But otherwise, they compare us to the Kumons and the Kit McGraths and all these online programs that are out there, and they just go, well, I can go on this online program and it's $25 per subject for the week. And it's like, well, if you can get that and it works for your child, go for it.
Can I make a suggestion how it can work for you there, Amber?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Talking to the parents, not the kids. And I apologise if I missed a bit. My dog was going to throw up in the middle of it all. I had to rush him out the door. So I hope that you didn't already cover this. Talking to the parents when they say, I can go to this other place and it's so much cheaper. Yes, I hear how you feel. I understand how you feel. Some other parents of other students have felt like that. But what they've found was that our process was superior because we could tailor it one-to-one. It wasn't a cookie cutter, and they experienced faster results, and therefore in the long term it ended up cheaper for them or less expensive for them.
Right. I think I'll have to play this back to get it all down.
Yeah, exactly. And
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
My pleasure.
And Amber, it can be something along the lines of, look, I know how you feel. It's things when you're a working parent, it's hard to make dollars meet. And a lot of people have felt like they can get something cheaper somewhere else. They felt like they can do exactly what you said, Amber. People have felt like they can get an online course cheaper. They felt like there's other models where whatever it is. I would avoid talking too much about your competitor because, again, there's evidence shows that if you run down your competitor, it puts a negative or it puts their attention to them.
Oh, I don't normally name them. I just say other franchises because there are thousands out there.
Yeah, yeah. So you could
And
say
franchises, like you said, they have a model and that it's one size fits all, whereas we don't.
Yeah. And so that could be what people have found is it's a one size fits all. What they've found working with us, like Elle said, that they get a much better, a much stronger outcome that is long-standing, that they need less tutoring. It's quality over quantity. Something along that, but you get the idea, though, right, Amber? It's
yeah.
They will feel heard here because you understand, you're communicating their pain back to them here, and you're giving them an outcome. But if you Google the feel, it's a very common methodology. If you Google why it works, I think I may have done a blog about it ages ago, Amber. I'll see if I can find it for you. But there's actually rationale around why it works in terms of creating that influence with people and using it to negotiate with people. And this is very much about, this is why active listening is so important, because you've got to feed back what they're saying to you and understand what's behind what they're saying in order to have this beautiful found that you land on them. And as a formula, it's easy to remember because it's an alliteration, Amber, which I know you'll understand. FFF, feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
You can remember it.
I'll look that one up after.
Yeah. And this is the one I said to you before. This is really powerful in objections or complaints. And when people are going off, oh, this is expensive and, this is not good enough and I paid for this and I got this, or this is not what I intended and this is not what if you simply say to them, what's going to make this right for you? I hear what you're saying. You're not happy about this. You're not happy about this. And Amber, I'm sure you get parents like this. I can just imagine in the work that you're doing. What is it that you would like to see happen? What's going to make this right for you? And it's sometimes 9 times out of 10, they will say, what I found, Amber, it may not be in your situation, but when I was working for this entrepreneur, when I asked this question, 9 times out of 10, they would say, well, nothing, I just want the owner of the business to know I'm not happy. And so I would then say to them, if you want to put that into an email and I get or a letter and I get the owner to respond to you, would that work for you? They go, yes. Yeah, I want them to know that I'm not happy. And that's all it took sometimes, I want to speak to the manager. Okay, well,
I am the manager.
yeah. It's like, hang on, I'll go get them for you. Hello, whatever it is. But that's a really interesting question. And sometimes it's just that they want to be heard. But you've just asked them, what is it you'd actually like to see happen? You don't want to say, what do you want from me? But it's that kind of, what do you actually want here? Is you want to get to the bottom of it.
And from that point of view also, I often get people put on the sob story of, oh, I'm a single parent. And I don't know what to say to that one.
And so
this one works really well on the sob stories, the feel, felt, found.
Yeah.
Really, really well.
Yeah.
Yes, I know how you feel. I've had some other single parents and they felt exactly the same. But what they found was, because we've got such an intuitive system and we focus just one-on-one, we actually ended up being more beneficial for them and their child because it wasn't a cookie cutter style, it's individualized.
Thank you.
Barb, are you doing transcriptions of these?
No, I'm not actually. Are you?
I'm not, but you can do it automatically through Zoom.
I think I can actually. So yeah.
Jasmine's just put in the
I just saw
group.
that.
Another point of view. I lost it. You might be able to see it, Barb.
From another point of view, I am trying to get my local Catholic Diocese of Education owned that they discriminated against my daughter. I've listened with what I want, and all I get is why isn't your daughter at school anymore? Is that what you're saying, Jasmine? Yeah. I'm guessing you can't talk, which is why you popped it in the chat.
Yeah, no, it's so I've actually listed what I want. And the Catholic Education Diocese is saying, but why do you want us to deal with this when your daughter isn't within our education system anymore? So it definitely goes both ways as to
yes. And perhaps that's, you can communicate, why, obviously why, this is what I want and this is what I need and this is why I need it. Yeah. And this is what's going to make it right for me. Let us know, Jasmine, if there's anything else that we can do as a community, because there will be people watching this recording as well. And remember, there is that forum. If you do want some support and ideas around this in terms of negotiating through that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm pretty good. I've had legal advice, I've had offers for media, Human Rights Commission. I can go a lot deeper and bigger if they're not going to play the game.
Your daughter's got a disability, is that right, Jasmine?
She's got a chronic illness, yeah, and
Yeah.
she was, discriminated against at her high school, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and sometimes it's that I can imagine as a parent, Jasmine, you want to make sure that it doesn't happen for other kids, that they understand that this is not okay and to take ownership. And it's interesting. That's why I say what would make it right, because sometimes it is that acknowledgement. When I go into mediation, sometimes what people most want is an apology. You know? Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jasmine. That's really important to see it, to see it from that other perspective, the other side. And this is why I was showing you that scale in terms of negotiation, is where do we sit in some of those. Now, this is an interesting one in terms of the next one, because this is what the this is what the school or the Catholic Diocese of Education could do, is saying, well, I'm not the decision maker here. This is a how you get out of something. If you want to say no to somebody's trying to sell you something, trying to persuade you, and you go, oh, look, I'd really love to do that, but I'm not the decision maker here. Let me come
I
back
get
to
that
you.
with parents who come along to our trial session, and then when it comes to making a decision as to whether or not they're going to continue with the tuition, they say, oh, I'm not the one who needs to, I need to speak to my husband, or I need to speak to my wife about the money because they're in charge.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, Amber, the typical, what we used to learn in Amway, Amway was so good for so much stuff, is how about we organize, you try, it's not always easy, but you work on trying to have a conversation with both parents. So how about can I tee up a time with your husband? Can I tee up a time to go through some options and some solutions with your husband? I don't know if you've tried that one. It's not always
No.
easy. It doesn't always work. But that's what you aim for. How about we set up a meeting with both you and your husband, and we can go through some options together.
If that doesn't work, bring in the scarcity. Yeah, look, understand, but I do have 3 other people wanting this position. Get back to me quickly, because I'll be contacting them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're on the receiving end, well, if they do it, you know that you've got that up your sleeve as well. You know, it's a tactic to give you thinking space and not being tied in. The irony is a lot of us are on the other side of that. Isn't it? It's interesting. And look, you can use this one, the company policy trick, this one. This is where you go, look, I would really love to buy right now, but it's company policy that we do this. So again, if I'm one of those parents, Amber, I could be saying to you, look, I'd really love to buy this, but my husband and I always agree that we talk things over before we commit to financial decisions. But you could.
That's the company policy trick.
So the company is me and my husband. But Amber,
Oh.
you can also do it. For example, someone can say to you, let's say, Amber, somebody says to you, oh yeah, I would like to do let's say you like your parents to pay up front. Let's just say,
Yep.
right? You could say, and they go, oh yeah, but I like to pay weekly and I'll pay you next week. And you could just say, oh look, I feel found, understand. la, 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 and you say, I'd love to help you out. Gosh, I'd love to help you out. It's company policy that we get a 10% deposit before we start coaching. God, I'd love to help you. I understand finances are tight and you really need to get your kids started straight away. We just have a company policy here that's the same for every parent. God, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'd really love to help you out. It's company policy. Yeah, so yeah, I'd love to hold that space for you, but it's company policy that we take a 10% deposit. It's those kind of, yeah, so you're kind of saying, yeah, I hear you, I understand you. There's just rules beyond me
Yeah.
to make this thing happen. You're trying to be the helpful negotiator, basically. And coming up with some options. This is one you'll probably have experienced. Oops, this one before. This is the 2 yes trick. So this is where if you're selling something, you never want to say to somebody, what do you think? Because they'll go, oh, let me think about it. So you will have had this experience in a sales situation where they're going, awesome. So do you want the red one or the blue one? Which one will you be taking today? It's like, oh, whoa, did I actually say which one I'm going to be taking? So would you like to pay with cash or deposit? Would you like to pay with, how would you like to pay for that today? You're familiar with that kind of language?
Yeah.
So I'll give you another example of doing this at home. If I say to my husband, my kids are no longer little, by the way, with this scenario, but this is a true story. If I used to say to my husband, do you want to pick the kids up after school today? He would say, yeah, no, you can do it. You can do it today, right? But if I asked him, what time are you picking up the kids from school today? He'd tell me a time. Oh, I guess I can pick them up at 3:15. Yeah, I can work that with work. Great. Awesome. Hope you can't hear me. No, it is the weekend. So you assume the yes in the scenario. You don't ask for the yes and ask for permission. You just assume the yes. That's why it's the 2 yes. It's, do you want this or this?
I do use that with my staff.
Great.
Please submit your timesheets in Xero today. I don't, go on about it, how, have you submitted your timesheets? Please do it today. Just please submit your timesheets. There are other ways. That's just a silly way that I'm mentioning it, but there are other ways that I've done it. I can't just recall off the top of my head.
And it gives a false sense of control. So it doesn't mean people don't feel manipulated in the sense that, well, they kind of know what's going on, but they're making a choice. And so I'll give you another scenario, Amber. I know that you'll relate to this one. So my son had behavioural issues from the time he was 2 right up into about grade 3 or 4 in primary school. And for him, it was about we recognised quite early on, it was about a sense of control. So if you said to him, time to get off the swings now, we're going back into the classroom, he would get irritated and agitated and arc up. So we had to explain to childcare workers how to negotiate with him. And we had to learn to negotiate with him so that we could get him what we needed him to do. So, for example, we would say to childcare workers, if you want him to come, you've been playing outside in the sandpit and he needs to come in and he's resistant, you give him the 2 yes option. You say to him, you can sit down and have story time with the other kids, or you can sit quietly in the corner and play with the blocks. Sandpit time outside is over now. So these are your options. Which one would you want to do? You can do this or you can do this. You know, so then people will go, oh, okay, well, I'll choose that. And it gives them, if they feel like they're not being pushed into a corner, they have a sense of control. You can do this or you can do this. Which one's it going to be? You choose.
Good
So
idea.
again, in a business sense, I gave you the example with my husband picking up the kids, but you can also do it in terms of putting in options or terms in proposals or contracts. Again, what people found, and I think I've got it in another slide, is giving people options. They like to have choice, but I'll go through that one a little bit later on. This is a classic one. This is exactly what you were talking about before, Elle, but this is the haggle trick. So you go in with your biggest ask and expecting that people will knock you down. You know that from doing sales and doing real estate as well. You know that you're going to be knocked down, so you would go in for that. But the same token, you go, well, what about this? Will you take this? I will always ask for a lower option as well, just to see if I can. Depends on whether or not it's a situation where it's going to cause offence. But that's what you might want to try for. When my husband had never been overseas before, and about 10 years ago, we went to Bali. We had the opportunity as a family to go to Bali, which is very much a culture of haggling there in the markets and in the stores. That's the nature of it. And he would just walk up and go, how much is that? And they'd tell him, go, okay. I go, no, David, you're meant to be haggling. You got to haggle. He goes, I don't like it. And I said, but that's the culture. You've got to do it. Did you find that, Amber, when you're in Bali? You were just there?
Oh yeah, I love that about Bali. I tend to go in like just really disturbingly cheap.
Yeah, well, that's the point, right? That's
And
that's the haggle
yeah,
trick.
the other way that I do it sometimes is I start at a price, and as they come in a lot higher, I then sit there and I go lower. And
Yeah,
they're going,
right.
that's not how it works. And it's like, well, you're going to give me that. I'm going to go lower.
Yeah, right. Oh, you're ruthless.
We
Yeah.
used to do the opposite in real estate. So we'd be selling a house for say 300,000. That was a long time ago, and somebody would come in and offer 200,000. So if they offered a really cheeky offer like that, I would suggest to the owners that they could come back with more. So they would come back with, no, we're not accepting your 200. Here's our counter offer of 350.
That's like
So they
Amber
would
saying,
actually,
yeah.
but on the other end, on the seller's end, yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. Interesting.
Yeah. I
You're
didn't
not
get
allowed
many
to, you're not allowed to haggle in real estate anymore, are you?
don't know. I'm not in real estate anymore. You still have to negotiate to come to an agreement between a buyer and a seller, an agreed price. And
Oh, isn't it
so
actually it's that you can't play two potential buyers off each other?
I'm not sure what the rules are now. I'm in Queensland, and when I was in it, you had to disclose if there were other bidders, and everyone had to write down that they were putting in their best offer. That was a totally different set. This is just one buyer, one seller until you
Yep.
come to a price that you agree. But the rules have changed. I've been out of real estate for a while now.
But this haggle trick, you can use that in your family. It doesn't have to be with sales necessarily. It's you go in big, you can go in big. And if you come down from that, then that's still a win. Yeah. It can be any negotiation that you have, but that's the nature of it, is go big, go big. If you get it, great. But if if you have to pull down, then you've got space and you kind of prepare for that. This is the other one that I find really interesting, which is I can't quite see the text there, but it's along the lines of the 2 yes. When I was doing Amway, what we
You
found,
choose trick.
yeah, the you choose trick. You choose. Here are the options. And this is a really common one in sales, but this is along the lines of what I was saying with my son in the negotiation of coming in from outside. Here are the options. You've got choice. You have options. It's up to you. Certainly in business and in sales, setting things up like this with good, better, best, it creates a sensation of value. Predominantly people go for this because most people go for this because they recognize, well, wow, that's value. That's good value if I go for that. I mean, that's okay, but I get, you know who does this really, really well is service stations with the buy two for this price, right? You go in you only want one bottle of water, which is, I don't know, $4, but if you buy two, you get them for $6, and you go, oh, well, that makes sense. It's better value. But you're still being ripped off somehow. Do you know what I'm talking about? So it's kind of that situation. And so if you position things, it creates perceived value. Yeah. So think about that, not just in selling, but positioning things to people or offering options or solutions. Before you go into that conversation, you go, well, here are some choices. So this one is normally, what have we got? This one's costly, it costs a lot, but it's definitely good value. This is a moderate cost and moderate value, and then this is budget, but it's really the lowest offering. So you don't get much for it, but it can be really, really cheap. And it's kind of how you position it. And so, yeah, it doesn't have to be money. It can be what it's going to cost me in order to do that thing. Any thoughts, comments, or questions around that one?
So you said best is your best offer.
Yeah, like this is everything, the whole bells and whistles, and somebody's already kind of bought into it. They go, oh, what the hell? I'll just go, I'm going to get that because it's a lot of money, but it's great value, right? It makes sense to do it. So, Amber, to give you an example, in my one-on-one coaching programs, I'm always going to pitch. I always pitch that to people, but it's a bit like the haggle check. I pitch that, but I've got these other options. So people can pay up front and save considerable amount of money, or they can pay monthly. And it's still reasonable value, but it's okay. But otherwise, if they don't want to do that, then they can just pay for one coaching session, but they're going to pay, it's going to cost them, I don't know, $300 rather than $150. So yeah, it's cheaper than paying for 12 months of coaching, but it's not necessarily good value. Does that make sense?
And what was the better then?
So the better is going, I can pay monthly. I can pay for 12 months. That's really good value. Like I get 12 months of coaching. It's certainly better than paying, and I'm paying maybe $200 a month for it by paying monthly. It's not as cheap, but it'd be so much cheaper if I paid up front, but I can't really afford that. But I can pay monthly. And it's reasonable. It's certainly cheaper than paying $300 just for one coaching session.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I paid monthly, it might cost me $200 a month if I pay monthly. But if you paid up front, it'd work out to $160 a coaching session. So much, really good value, right? But you've got to pay all of that money up front. That's just giving you an example in terms of you could do that with your tutoring, Amber, as well, because people go, oh, well, I've got a choice. Either way, you win in this situation, right? Because you either get people paying up front, which helps for your cash flow, or you're getting, this is a pain in your butt, but you're getting really good income from it. But if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do.
I actually had someone offer and I accepted it to pay for the entire, because we went up in price as of the 1st of January. So I offered for the people who paid before the 31st of December that they could have term 4's rates for term 1 this term.
If
And
they
I
paid
had
up front.
someone
If they paid up front, yeah.
if they paid up front, yeah.
Yeah, there you go, right?
I had one parent come back to me say, can I get that same rate if I pay for the whole 12 months, like all 4 terms? And I was like, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So we're talking money here, but it doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be, you can say with your kids with the washing, I'm going to be doing washing today. If you put all your washing here right now, I will do it for you. But otherwise, I'm not going to do it. And so they go, oh, well, that's a pain in the butt, me having to get it all together. But yeah, it can be a whole range of things. You can do this, you can do this, or you can do this, and gives them a sense of control over the choice. But you get that buy-in because it's perceived value. They feel the value in the choice, and so it's a bit like that. I don't want to miss out. That's such good value. I don't want to miss out on that option. Like Amber, you had if you do it now, you get the value. But once we go over that date, you lose it.
Yeah.
So there's it doesn't have to be just in a sales situation. It can be lots of different situations. So you can see I've given you quite a few tricks that you can utilize. These are different, I say tricks, but they're methodologies. A lot of these have come from sales, but they don't just have to be sales. It can be about whatever it is you have to persuade somebody to do.
Oh, actually, the other one that I did just before Christmas was I got everyone to put their timesheets in, and I said, as long as you have your timesheets in by this particular, and I gave them a fair bit of warning, like about 3 days.
Yeah.
If you have to get your timesheets in by this time on this day, otherwise you're going to because we're going on leave, all of us. Otherwise, you won't get paid until the very first pay after the admin person comes back, the bookkeeper, which will be on the 15th January. So he came back a couple of days ago, and I've got one staff member who was like, "Oh, sorry, I was late. Can I still get my pay?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
This is the way it was.
Yeah.
And you didn't get it in, and we're all on holidays now, so you can't expect us now.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get around to it.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, but we even tried ringing her on the day. We tried messaging her through Messenger, through text, everything, emailed her.
Yeah.
No response.
Well, these are the terms. And everything, like what you're demonstrating, Amber, and all of this is about negotiation, is about boundary lines. Where can you stretch and where can't you? Where is the flex and where is there no flex? What can you do? And this one here is
she
about.
She didn't have the money for Christmas, and she was disappointed. And I was like, well.
Yeah. And there has to be boundary lines. There do have to be boundary lines around things. This one is about being able to have options that meet different people at their need levels. But it's about perceived values. So this is where in negotiation it comes to the listening to what people need and what are the options. So you made it very clear, Amber, but just that person didn't. They just thought that they could stretch the boundary lines. Yeah,
that's a company policy one.
Yeah, company.
Look, I'd love to help you out, but the company policy is it had to be in by this date, otherwise it rolls over to the middle of January.
Well done, Elle. Well done. Fantastic.
I might have done a bit of negotiating in my time.
Yes, well done.
Awesome.
Let's take a little bit of a break, and just for, let's say, about 10 minutes, I'll stop the recording for anyone who's watching the recording so they don't have to sit through the break. I'm going to turn my camera and my mic off so you'll know when I'm back. So yeah, if we can do about 5 to 10 minutes, just go to the toilet, get a drink, whatever you need to do. If you're watching the recording, pause it and go and do the same thing.
I'm just going to jump in my car and drive home.
Oh, okay, Amber.
Only takes me 5 minutes, but so you know that I'm coming back.
All right, no worries. I'll just stop the share. Okay, we're recording again. I almost forgot that. I was just checking my emails in my break, and Elle said, Elle, can I share, Elle? She sent me a little email and she said, you might want to change your story about the boiling frog. So she's explored it and she said, it's not actually true. If you turn the temperature up, frogs will actually jump out. And biologists and zoologists have verified this. They've said the story's not true. So I'll have to have a disclaimer and say there's a mythological story. It's an analogy. It's an analogy. It's not really true. Maybe I'll use the story of a drunk man sitting in a spa.
Yes, that one could work. Or ChatGPT came up with this. Sorry, that one actually wasn't right. A hot air balloon analogy, where instead of just pumping the hot air straight in, it goes flying up into the air. You start it slowly, so it gradually and gently rises.
Yeah.
Or the ice bath analogy, if it's really icy and you jump in, it's really freezing. But if you jump into a room temperature and gradually decrease the temperature until it's icy, your body adjusts more easily. Or the room lighting, you walk into a really bright room and you're dazzled, but if you walk into a dim room and gradually bring up the light, your eyes adjust easier. So there's 3 alternatives for you.
Oh, yeah.
I'll send them to you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Elle. That's great.
I had nothing to do in my 5-minute break.
I love that. Yeah, I have to think of some different analogies. What I want to look at now, and there's a bit of a on the worksheet, there's a number of different scenarios, positive behavior that you can choose, and it's interesting to see which one you might choose. I'm going to just pick some there randomly. But I'll read all of them first, just for those that may not have the workbook for whatever reason. Using examples or hypotheticals, admitting your mistake, compromising, other useful, valid information, establishing boundaries, being silent, make a promise, withdraw, stand your ground, let them vent, or rephrase. So I'm just going to pick some randomly there and let's have a little discussion about them in terms of what's an example and what could be a potential effect. So if I give an example, I'm going to pick let them vent. Where can anyone give an example of something and where that might be useful and positive and helpful in a negotiation? Can you think of a scenario or an example of where you might let someone vent? Jasmine.
I used to work in grants, and obviously there were some difficult conversations I had to have with people when they didn't meet the grant guidelines. And obviously, it was a tough time for them for various reasons. So yeah, I would sort of just let them rattle off and yeah, vent it all out and then yeah, sympathize with them. But then once that was done, I could take what information they might have told me as well and then reallocate them to other resources.
Right. I love that. And so some things that I can hear in that is I'm imagining with sympathizing, you're probably paraphrasing back to them what they've said to you. So it's a bit like the feel, felt, found. And so I'm hearing this is important and you are frustrated with this and this is what you need. Here are some other options. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'm going to pick another one. Why would admitting mistakes be a positive behavior? What's an example? It doesn't have to be a real one. It could be a scenario.
I do that all the time in teaching,
Yes, Amber?
so that students know that it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, great.
And I actually deliberately make mistakes so that they can recognize also that if the teacher makes a mistake and I just go, oh, whoops a daisies, silly me, and then move on. So I find that a lot of my learners take on that whoops a daisies, silly me, and they take on that language, which is so much better than, oh, fuck's sake. When you look at your face and what you're doing in the two, it leaves you with more of a positive mindset
Yeah,
by the way
nice.
that way you're saying it. But yeah, admitting mistakes, and that's what I would do. I would admit that I'd made a mistake and look at how I could then fix it.
Why is that important, Amber? If we're talking about negotiation, why is that useful, do you think?
Because it shows that you're real and that everybody makes mistakes and it's okay. From a point of negotiating, I suppose if you're paraphrasing and you haven't got it what they were wanting, then you're admitting that you have misunderstood what it was and you would apologise and say, oh, I misunderstood where you were coming from, and then go on with another option.
I think too, you're right, Amber. That's all valid. I think where it's useful too, if we think about all the different sorts of situations where you're negotiating, if it's in a mediation or if it's in a sales situation, those different environments. One thing is it shows that you don't have a hidden agenda, and you're building rapport by showing your vulnerability, and you're building trust. By saying, yeah, I've got nothing, I'm not going to try and hide or pull the wool over your eyes. I'm putting it out on I'm showing you all my cards, so to speak. In a mediation, where if you admit mistake, you're like, yeah, look, I did make a mistake with that. You're right in this situation. It's demonstrating a little bit of compromise and a little bit of understanding of the other person's feelings by being able to own that mistake. Elle, did you want to say something? Got your mic open?
Yeah, Barb, I was going to say you actually did it at the beginning of this module, saying, I'm really sorry, the software, it's my fault, it's on my end, the software mucked up the times. Thank you for being here, but we'll fix it for the next one. So you were the perfect example of exactly that.
Oh, thank
Give
you.
yourself a pat on the back.
Thanks. Thank you, Elle. I appreciate that. It builds, but vulnerability does build trust and rapport. And vulnerability is also a great way to repair damaged relationships as well. By having it's an empathetic response as well. Oh, what else can we do? Let's pick it. Does anyone want to pick one from that list if you've got the workbook in front of you? If there's an example that you could give.
I think the establishing boundaries one is the one I mentioned just before in regards to the pays.
Yeah. It's
letting them know that, this is where the cutoff date is. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till mid-January.
Yeah. And in mediations, those clearly determining those boundary lines is really important. And if you think about it, if you're negotiating a big sale, you can imagine in real estate, the boundaries in terms of if it's just verbal and it's like, yeah, we'll throw something in special for you. It's not clear. Like it actually has to be, we'll do this, but we won't do that. We'll do this, but we won't do that. It's about making sure that there's no grey areas. So boundaries are really important in negotiating negotiation, so there's no confusion later on. It's not, or conflicts aren't going to come up later on. Yeah, boundaries are always really important, clear boundaries. Compromise is a useful one. Compromise doesn't mean that you always have to give in, but if you give a little, then it shows, it builds rapport as well. So there can be, this is a list that you can use in a positive way when you're working in a negotiation with people. So now what I want you to think about, if we flip over the page in the workbook, we want to look at challenging behavior, and how you might respond if somebody presented this kind of behavior to you when you're trying to negotiate with them. What if someone said to you, I love this one, what if someone said to you, take it or leave it? That's my offer. Take it or leave it. That's what I'm going to do. Anyone want to speak
Thank
to
you,
that one?
and then walk
Generally
away.
call their bluff and say, I'll leave it.
Yeah, Jasmine, that could be a response. Amber, what were you going to say?
Thank you, and then walk away.
Could be that. Yeah. Which is like kind of what Jasmine's saying.
Treat in Bali.
What was that? What did you say in Bali?
It works like a treat in Bali.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think from the point of view is if someone's going to respond like that, they're not someone I want to be doing business with anyway.
It's an aggressive kind of response, isn't it? Yeah. And if you can imagine if someone was selling a car and you're trying to negotiation with them, no, that's it, take it or leave it, that's what it is. Yeah, I think personally, like both of you have said, it's like, well, I'm going to think about that and I'll get back to you on it. You know, that could be a polite response, or yeah, no thanks. If that's the case, no thanks.
But I guess what you're getting at is we're talking about negotiation. So how do we then, bring them down from that aggressive response? So, I guess it's just not meeting their aggressiveness and keeping yourself cool and calm and factual, and go, well, let's just revisit what we've spoken about here, and let's see, where our impasse is.
And the other thing too, if you think about it, is what's your last point of call? So Amber, in Bali, how long are you going to be here for? How many have you got? If I was someone selling a car and I'm wanting to offer them a lower price, I'm going, nah, take it or leave it. That's my price. When can I get back to you? How many other offers? You would look at what your limitations are into where is the boundary line for their take it or leave it response to you.
I would have that figure in my head already.
Yeah.
So that I knew, like, when I got off the plane and I wanted to get a car, I knew what the distance was. I knew all of that sort of stuff and what would be expected. Plus, obviously there's the airport tax as well, and they go, really, really high, like $60, basically the equivalent. But I know that it $15 is actually a reasonable price. So just sort of like going, this is how it is. I suppose that's one of my take it or leave it's. This is how much I'm willing to pay. If you're not able to drive me, then there's a guy over there that probably will be.
So that's your boundary, the boundary line.
Yeah.
Yeah. What if we've got someone who's not engaging or walking away while you're trying to negotiate and have a conversation with them, come to a conclusion or a resolution, and they're not engaging with you or they're walking away? What might you do? Jasmine.
Oh, look, it depends on the scenario, but if it's sort of in an office environment where you're going to come across them again, my first thoughts are that they need to cool down, and I need to give them that space. Um, and, you know, it's something I do as well. I'll disengage, and it's not, I'm trying to be rude to someone. It's just that I've noticed that I'm going to, you know, probably behave not appropriately. And, you know, I need to bring myself back down. So, um, you know, in that sort of scenario, I would just give them space and then reapproach them later.
Yeah, great. And perhaps too, if you were doing that to me, Jasmine, if I saw you walking away or something, I'd say, oh, all right, I'm going to leave you to think about that, Jasmine, and perhaps we can revisit that later on this afternoon if that works for you. Or, you know, maybe we could revisit. I would be looking at proposing another time so it gets closure. So in essence, basically what you're saying in a polite and diplomatic way is this isn't over. Because you're choosing to walk away, I will accept that. I'm not complete. What are you going to say?
Yeah, look, I was just going to say, just to add there, I actually don't walk away from people. But just like, you know, through emails or something, you know, I won't respond in the heat of the moment or something. I'll
I
walk
gotcha.
away type thing.
Okay.
So that's what I'm getting at. I don't just like, if I don't like what you're saying, I'm just going to walk away. That's not how I roll. I thought I just better clarify that.
Not that that's a bad thing. My husband does that to me all the time. He walks, I'll be nagging at him and he just walks out the room. That's his
Oh,
strategy.
I only do it when my husband whistles at me in the sheep yard as if I'm one of the working dogs. That's when I'll just walk away.
I would too. I think I can remember when I was about 13 and my dad was going somewhere and he goes, go on, get behind. It's like, I am not your dog. He just forgot, I think. He was just, you know, cattle, dog. Yeah. What if somebody gives you an ultimatum when you're trying to negotiate? If you don't do this. Now, think about this in terms of, again, if we're in a divorce settlement or a custody or a corporate handover, like Elle was saying, where somebody says, if you're going to make me do this, then I'm going to do this. What might you do? What's an approach you might have for that? I feel like I would say to somebody in that situation, that feels like, for me, that feels like a threat because essentially that's what it is. Is there an alternative? What would you be willing to do? What's going to make it right? That's the kind of language you want to be able to have. That feels like a threat for me. That's what I would be communicating.
It's again like the take it or leave it. It's aggressive,
That's right.
and assertive in the wrong way to use assertiveness. So again, it's trying to redirect, bring them down, and circle back over.
Yeah. And what are some options? What are some solutions? All of these things are designed to be triggers for you, right? These are things typically in all of this list where you'd go, whoa, I'm going to back out, but you can't. So thinking about the solutions. Remember the questions, if you've got nothing else, questions are always really powerful in these situations.
Again, I think it's just knowing what you spoke about before. Um, what was it that I wrote down? You know, what's the consequence of not having that opportunity? You know, so what else are you willing to settle for? Because in this situation, there might be an opportunity cost. There probably opportunity cost is the wrong word. But whereas if they're being difficult and you're going to keep pushing for exactly what you want, there's going to be a, you know, like a
Altercation.
not quite the word. I suppose a flow-on effect
Yeah.
of
There's going to be a cost
of
somewhere, whether it's financial,
yeah, yeah,
emotional, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's understanding what it is, if that the ultimatums come from a place of fear or threat. So that's where it's what are you most afraid of is essentially the questions. What do you want? Going back to that LMP stuff, why is this important to you? Those kind of questions can be really helpful because you immediately, if someone throws a punch, you want to throw a punch back. So all of these things is about applying that active listening and emotional intelligence and asking those questions. Yeah. Just quickly, just mindful of time. I don't want to keep you too much longer on this on your weekend. What I will say to you is in these kind of conversations, whether it's informal or formal, big stakes or low stakes, it's always useful to have record keeping. So even if it's just we have a conversation and I flick an email and go, great to chat to you today, Amber. As agreed, you bring the trifle and I'll bring the salad. You know, it's just the simple things that to ensure that there's no confusion later on. In a workplace, it's really important in terms of HR to keep those records and those details. Whether you share it with the person you're negotiating with or whether you keep those records for yourself, it's always useful just to jot things down. Look, and I say it quietly. Even when my husband, I even get him to sign things sometimes. Like I'm good, definitely, yes, I'm quitting smoking. And if I quit smoking, I promise to do this thing. I say, okay, write it down and sign it and date it. So that I can help him keep committed to those things as well. Okay, let's have a look now. What else have we got? Positive, we've got some of these, I think we've talked about some of these triggers, but trying to maintain being positive. So we talked about the take it or leave it, but these can be some really negative things that people have said to us, and we can have a knee-jerk reaction. What if somebody says, I'm just going to randomly pick some. We're not going to refund you that amount of money. We're not going to do that. We're denying your request. What might
I
you
had
say?
someone who was pushing because they didn't want to continue tuition.
Mm-hmm.
And we have in our policy that you have to pay 3 weeks if you terminate policy before a contract before it's finished. And they went to the Ombudsman and came back to us. And in the end, I had to refund their money. But they'd committed to a term. They'd paid for it. And then they changed their mind. In the end, I had to refund their money because going to an ombudsman and getting advice from them, I just, that's just like going to a lawyer.
Mm.
And I felt backed into a corner. So that was the only thing I could do, even though our policy stated, which they signed the terms and conditions, and our policy stated that if you terminate a contract early, that you provide 3 weeks, you pay for the next 3 weeks.
And I guess it's like what Jasmine was saying before is you can stand your ground and not give in. What can be the consequence? So there's always that decision you have to make is this battle worth fighting? If I keep persisting, what could happen? And I think you obviously in your business, Amber, made that choice, didn't you? You go, well, the stakes are potentially too high here, so I'm going to go back on what my actual agreement is, and give them what they
because
want.
the negative publicity from that would have been too much.
It's just not worth it. It's like, yeah, fine, just have it. I'm not going to fight you for it. take
Yeah.
it then.
We brought in the policy because a couple of years ago, I had a boy and a girl who were sister and brother. The parents had paid for a whole term. And before the term even started, they asked for a refund so they could pay a little bit like that. Before Christmas, they asked for a refund and that they would pay again in January. They just needed to get through their tightness of Christmas. And I took them on face value. And I learned that they went to tutoring somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had relied, when I did my staffing and everything, we had relied on the numbers attending. So that's like two gone in one go.
And as a business person, I totally get that. I had my husband hates it when I do training because I always talk about him. But my husband got really cranky when he was taking one of the kids to podiatrist and he was busy and he didn't feel like it, and he rang up half an hour before the appointment and said, "Oh, sorry, we can't come. Can we reschedule?" And they said, "Yes, you can, but we have a 24-hour cancellation policy, so you will be charged for your cancellation at the next appointment." And he got really cranky with them and told them to stick it. And I had to explain to him, I said, "I'm a business owner. I've sold my time to you. If you don't fulfill on that commitment, then I lose money because I could have given that time to somebody else." So Amber, it's like you're saying, you've got staff on knowing that you're going to have all of these students. And so you put extra staff on and then they don't show up. They're not there.
Well, that's just it.
Yeah.
And when it comes up towards Christmas, people just go, "Oh, let's do this instead." And I have to have it, that there is the cancellation policy, and yes, you will be billed for this session, because suddenly you've got five clients coming in for one person, and suddenly only one person turns up, but I've had to pay them for 5 hours.
Elle, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, can I offer in because we're talking about we're not going to refund you that amount of money, what would be an alternative? And Amber's is the perfect scenario. Good on you for having a cancellation policy in front. And I'm not saying this would work every single time, but perhaps something like, look, appreciate that. We're definitely going to refund you. You know that there's the 3-week cancellation policy, but we're happy to provide those 3 weeks of tutoring. Or the one who got the refund.
I've always offered those 3 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I said. Doesn't always. Or the one who withdrew or got the refund before Christmas. Yeah, sure, we can refund that. We'll just hold that 3-week pre-booking.
That's a good one.
So that's already in place for you, because you're doing them a favour by doing that.
Yeah, I took them on face value, and it's one of those things I'm now less likely to do.
We all learn through the experiences that happen to us.
Yeah.
And customers are the worst things in business.
What about this one? This is along the same lines. This is, why is this necessary? Surely you trust me.
Yeah. I don't trust any of them anymore until the money's in the bank.
So regardless of whether it's Amber's tutoring or it's anything else, maybe it's like I'm a coach and I get people to sign an agreement. How do I respond when someone says, "Don't you trust me?" Jasmine, you've got your mic open. Do you want to say something to that?
Yeah, I just revert back to my business processes and how I need to be shown of doing my due diligence for like audit purposes.
Yeah. And that goes back to company policy, right? It's not me, it's the company policy. I know how you feel, felt the same way. I do trust you. I just have to do my due diligence. Or you can say, or you create the other big baddie over here. Totally get you, but my accountant will be, a cranky if you don't. Yeah. So sorry to have to ask you, but my accountant's asking this. Yeah. Or whatever, or whoever. My business partner, my whatever. So once again, there's a list there of what I want you to think about is maybe reflect on this and take some time to go, what would I do if somebody said this to me? How could I respond? Because it's very easy to have those knee-jerk reactions in these kind of conversations and to get quite emotive or defensive. So I've given you some tricks or strategies along the way. Just wanted to give you some scenarios of where you might have to apply those in order to be able to navigate through some challenging conversations. I want to ask you now, this is where, once again, where I want to keep a level of accountability for you, is for you, based on what we've talked about today, is for you to perhaps write in the chat, and you can share if you want to, opening the mic as well. Those four things, based on what we've covered today, what is something you might start doing? What is something that you're going to stop doing? You recognize that you're doing. What's something you might change and do a little bit differently? What's something that you're going to go, wow, I'm on the right track. I'm going to continue doing that. That's just affirmed it for me.
Sorry, is that in relation to today's session with negotiation or just in general?
Yeah, in relation to what we've covered today, Jasmine. And anyone who's watching the recording, I want you to actually put that in the chat. For those, that are watching the recording, those that are here live now, it would be great for you to put it in the chat. What I'm going to do is, like I said, is hold you accountable. I'm going to put some action steps into the portal. Something you might start. So what some things you could try one of those negotiations. You might start doing feel, felt, found. You might start saying what's going to make it right. You might change the way you look at negotiating with others based on their skill or their willingness. You might try and be more aware of the power dynamic.
One of the things that came, like with regards to the cancellation policy, because we have a 48-hour notice, because I need to be able to give notice to my staff as to their shift being changed. So what I started doing, and I've had less backlash since, is explaining in the free trial session why the 48-hour notice is necessary, because I still have to pay the wages and the super and everything for the staff member to be there for your child. So when someone rings up and says, oh, they're sick, they can't make it, we first of all offer a Zoom session instead so that they can still have their session.
And you learned that through COVID, didn't you, Amber?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alternatively, they will obviously need to forfeit their money.
Yeah. So Elle's written in the chat, she's going to start being silent to draw out more conversation and ideas. BHAC, what does that stand for? Yeah, I know you're trying to get off mute, Elle. Or you're going to write.
Here we go. BHAC is the Bruce Highway Advisory Council.
Oh, okay. I thought it was an acronym for some amazing tool. I'm going to stop throwing a tantrum when things don't go my way. Oh, nice. Change, establish clearer boundaries around contact times and travel times, and continue feel, felt, found. Well done, Elle. That's awesome. That's a great list.
I was ready for it this week.
Yeah, good on you. Totally different subject this week. Jasmine is going to start establishing boundaries. Great. Stop people pleasing. Nice. Change instead of people pleasing, negotiate instead. Continue thinking about what triggers me and develop myself to not fall into that negative mindset. Great one. They're awesome, Jasmine. And my advice to you when you're going into negotiations, when you're feeling triggered, everything gets sped up. So just slow it down, just stop. And you don't have, sometimes you don't need to make decisions in the moment. You can say to people, let me think about that and come back to you as well. So you just, yeah, slowing things down. Amber, have you got some things you're going to start, stop, changing, continue? Are you talking? Because you're on mute. I don't know if you're talking.
Yep, I am now. I thought I was unmuted. Start would be feel, felt, found.
Awesome.
And continue would be to continue having that, like providing that explanation in the free trial session as to why we have the 48-hour notice, why it's necessary. I'm a bit stumped at the stop and the change at the moment, though.
So maybe you can change your questioning, your styles. That might be something. And you could, for example, stop having the same approach in with people based on their skills and willingness. You could be that, you know? That could be something. Trying to help you out here.
Yep, stop having the same approach when it comes to
skills and to people with varying skills and motivation. Try and increase your observation. So stop having just the same approach for everyone. You do this anyway, Amber, though. That's part of being a good tutor, is knowing every child is different.
Yeah.
But it's not just your children, obviously, it's your customers and the people around you.
So having the same approach, stop having the same approach when it comes to people with varying skills and motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, well done. All righty. Does anyone have any other questions before we finish up? If you do, please do drop them into the portal, into the forum. I'd be really curious, like Amber, maybe you can share in the portal where you've tried, feel, felt, found, or it'd be great to hear if you've been able to put some of these in practice in the conversations now that you're having with your family, with your community, with your clients, with the schools, Jasmine, if you've been able to put any of this into practice and how it went, if it worked or if it backfired. Any knowledge that you can share would be great. When we do come together for those group sessions, that'll be where we can have some of those. I'll be asking those questions about, were you able to do some of these things? How did it work? Have you applied it? Or have you been more aware, or have you observed some more things? And what can you share? We'll have conversation around that. Don't forget also that you can book in your one-on-ones with me so that we can do some of those diagnostic tools as well. So we can start to go through some observational stuff as well. So you can you're welcome to make use of that. All righty. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you so much for giving up your Saturday. The next sessions will be weekdays. So if you can come, that'd be great. But if you can't, like this one, they will be recorded, testing a bit of both. I really appreciate you giving up your time for me to experiment on you, my little guinea pigs. I look forward to catching up with you at the next one.
Absolutely.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.